friends, next ratio comes your debt equity ratio. So friends, what is debt equity? Under which heading it comes? Debt equity means solvency ratio. Solvency ratio means, friends, the persons who have advanced money, they are having excess money, so advanced money or they are given money to the business on long term basis, are interested in safety of their periodic payment of interest as well as repayment of principal amount at the end of loan period. We will give another example in it. We all are investors. We are investing in a bank. All are investing just for a sake? No, na. They are investing because they are assuming they will get a return good in future. Right now they are not, they don't need, or they are not needing much funds. So what they are doing? They are investing in bank. In return, bank gives them interest with repayment of their principal at the end of loan period or end of maturity. Am I correct? So what is solvency ratio? The solvency ratio is nothing but, what is solvency? The persons who have advanced money to the business on long term basis are interested in safety of their periodic payment of interest as well as their repayment of principal amount at the end of your term or period. So friends, solvency ratios are calculated to determine what is the ability of your business to serve its debt in the long run. It is the debt for a business because somebody is giving a loan or somebody is giving a money, monetary to the business. So business should have the ability to serve its debt in the long run. In the long run they need to pay, na? So they need to serve its debt in the long run. So debt equity ratio comes under solvency ratio. So what is debt equity ratio? It measures a relationship between debt and equity, long term debt. Remember, in liabilities, I just said long term liabilities, also known as your borrowed fund. This comes here in the numerator. Long term debt, also known as your borrowed fund or long term funds, divided by your equity, shareholders funds. If debt component of a long term funds employed is small, outsiders feel more secure. Why? From security point of view, a capital structure with less debt and more equity is considered favorable, as the name itself suggests, as it reduces the chances of bankruptcy. So normally it is considered to be safe if your debt equity ratio is 2:1. However, it may vary from industry to industry, friends. Okay. So how it is calculated? Also remember one thing, friends, here in debt equity ratio, by seeing the problem you need to arrive which formula should we apply. Because why? Because this confusion now everybody will be having. Why we should arrive, why we should analyze which formula should arrive. Here there is a trick, just listen here. Debt equity ratio is equal to your long term debts or long term funds or borrowed funds, okay, in numerator, divided by your shareholders funds, also known as your owners funds. Okay, so why I said about formula, where, because assume that shareholders funds, that means your equity. So shareholders funds, your equity, which includes all your capital, equity capital, your reserves, all that will be included. Share capital plus your reserves and surplus plus your money received against share warrants, these all coming under shareholders funds. Share capital means your equity share capital and your preference share capital, both we will include here in share capital. Similarly, if suppose in your problem, in your exam, share capital is not given and we need to calculate debt equity ratio, so how will we calculate? In that case, for shareholders funds or equity, we can calculate non-current assets plus your working capital minus your non-current liabilities. Shareholders funds in equity, if the problem specified is mentioned share capital, reserves and surplus, money received, or at least share capital and reserves and surplus, we will take that. If the problem doesn't mention share capital or reserves, directly it mentioned the non-current assets. Okay, non-current assets, working capital, non-current liabilities, we will take non-current assets plus your working capital minus your non-current liabilities will be coming in the denominator shareholders fund or equity. Okay, how is working capital calculated? Current assets minus your current liabilities. We will see one problem here. Debt equity ratio, relationship between your long term debts or long term funds or long term borrowed funds and your equity shareholders fund, owner's capital. So here problem is your capital is given. Okay, so capital means your share capital, maybe it's equity capital, maybe it's preference capital, maybe both are included. Then comes your free reserves and surplus. Then comes your long term loans. Okay, so capital here is given INR 200 lakhs. Free reserves and surplus is INR 300 lakhs. Long term loans is INR 800 lakhs. So we will calculate debt equity ratio is equal to long term debts or long term liabilities or borrowed funds divided by your, what would be coming here, the shareholders fund, okay, the owners fund, equity. So we will just see here what we should write in the numerator as well as the denominator. So here capital 200 plus your long term loans. Long term loans, what is your long term loans? 800 is there. 800 is your long term loans, 800 is your numerator, debt divided by your denominator, owners fund, capital and free reserves we will add. 300 plus 200 is 500. So 800 divided by 500 is equal to 1.6 is to 1. Remember 1.6 is to 1. So friends, what does it indicate? The importance of this ratio is it measures the degree of indebtedness of an enterprise or of a concern, and it also gives us an idea to the long-term lender regarding the extent of security of the debt. How much a debt of my money is being secured. It gives an idea. As indicated earlier also, okay, a low debt equity ratio. So what is, remember, a low debt equity ratio? It reflects more security. And conversely, a high ratio on the other hand is considered risky. Why? Because as it may put the firm into difficulty in meeting its obligations to outsiders or outsider liabilities. The firm is liable, if they are taking much money, the firm is liable to pay in the long run. So debt is low, that means the firm is more secured. If it is high, the firm is in more risk, as it may put the firm into difficulty if in meeting the obligations. If they are unable to pay, that means bankruptcy will be there, so it will be putting in the firm in the risky position. However, from the perspective of the owners, greater use of debt, okay, may help in ensuring higher returns for them if the rate of earnings on capital employed is higher than the rate of interest payable.